Well, good morning, everyone. So glad to see everybody here. I was impressed when I walked right upstairs. Normally it's herding the cats to get you all to come and sit down. You were all in your seats already. That's impressive. Very good. We're glad that you're here today for this pastors forum. We have a couple of important things to discuss. Chief among them, what is happening with our building campaign. And that is going to occupy the bulk of our time today here as well. We do want to just give you a couple of updates of some things that are happening. Then we're going to turn our focus over to the building campaign. And then after we hear from Kurt, our building committee chair, and then we are joined today by Robert Ferguson from Progressive AE. Excuse me. And Brandon Rhodes, who is also here from Pioneer Construction. And after our presentation, we'll have a chance to receive any of your questions. So if we would please begin, let's have a time of prayer. Gracious Lord, as we are gathered here today, we are thankful for this church and for all that has been set before us, for the dreams and the visions that we have, and for the means that we are inspired to accomplish them. As we come to this time today, may your Spirit be present with us as we seek out a path forward, as we move towards new directions, and as we are being led in ministry in this day and age through your Son, Jesus Christ. It's in his name we pray. Amen. Well, first of all, just a couple of updates. We are sad to announce that, as many of you already know, from a staff standpoint, Denise Neiswanger has retired from her position serving at Clark, and we got a chance to celebrate her in worship. And we are in the midst of talks around what our ministry is going to look like and how we will fulfill that position in the future. So we don't have anything new to announce on that front today. We also are sad to announce the retirement of Patsy McGillivray. After several years of service with us here, Patsy has decided to retire. She's actually away on vacation this week, already a pre-scheduled vacation. But please be sure to offer her your well wishes, and if you'd like to send her a note of thanks and appreciation, you can just see Sammy right over here, who's running the online portion of our meeting today, and she can get you that contact information as well. Our focus today, as I said, is going to be on our building project. We've had several new pieces of information that have come to light over the summer, and so today we want to update you on what it is that we know so far, what it is that we don't know so far, and take a look at our short-term and our long-term options. So far, we have raised from our Building Connections capital campaign $2.1 million, and that is just about $500,000 short of our overall goal of $2.6 million. So we still have a little bit of work to do when it comes to that. But once we got to that 2 million mark, and as we have crept up over that to the 2.1 million, some of us breathed a little bit more of a sigh of relief. So we are thankful for that. And thank you all for your generosity in supporting that as well. Give yourselves a hand there. If you have not had a chance to contribute to that, there's still time. And you can make your pledge over these next several years. We are happy to take any new monies that come in. If you want any more information on that, you can see myself. You can see Lori Myskowski, who is actually away on a camping trip this weekend, not able to be here, and we're happy to connect you with that as well. To give us the full update on what is happening, however, with our building project and what that is going to look like now in the future, again, with this new information that has come to light, we're going to first turn that over to our building committee chairperson, That is Kurt Kimball. Kurt is actually online with us today. And his name just disappeared off of our screen, but he's got to be there somewhere still.
I'm there.
There he is. So we're going to just have to attune ourselves a little bit more. Kurt's going to be coming on our main speaker here as he's watching online. And then we'll invite Robert and Brandon up and share some other information and ask any questions. So Kurt, we'll turn it over to you.
Good morning, everyone. I'm very sorry I cannot be with you in person, but I can tell you that the latest strain of COVID is very contagious, and unfortunately, I came down with that this week, and so I didn't want to infect any of you good people. Obviously, I care a great deal about what the subject of this pastors forum is this morning, and so I'm happy to join you online. We have worked with the team of Pioneer and Progressive on previous projects, as many of you know. They were the team that worked with us for the tower reconstruction, and more recently, it was the same team that we relied on for the improvements in the main sanctuary. So we have a history with those two organizations. We have faith in them, and you know, we're glad that we are associated with them for this more ambitious project that you're all familiar with.
Kurt, I'm going to ask you if you can just a little bit to speak up. Some folks are having trouble hearing you.
Okay, hopefully that's better.
So we can go. I'm sorry.
Okay, so the project has progressed through the design development phase, which is the second phase where we really get into the nitty gritty in terms of the particulars of what this project is all about. So it's quite a bit different than the schematic design phase that we started a long time ago. I can tell you that a lot of work has been done, a lot of drawings have been accomplished, but sort of the wild card in the whole mix is where things are going and have gone with regard to construction costs. And the last estimate that we based our total project cost of 4 million on, all included, for capital costs, including soft costs, the number that you should have in your heads that we were using and was $4.8 million. That was an estimate that Pioneer gave us as of October of 21. So 2 years have passed since we used that estimate, and a lot has happened. Frankly, the construction market for projects such as ours has gone a bit haywire, and our project is remarkably complex in ways that Robert and Brandon can share. So what we were faced with as of about a month ago, when we got a new estimate, was a significant difference in the estimated cost for our project. To make a long story short, the latest estimate that we had was 1.9 million more than the 4.8 million that we is the figure that you're used to. So obviously we communicated to the team that was a non-starter for our church, and that significant changes needed to be accomplished in order to bring the project back to a level that we could support with what we know now are the results of our capital campaign and the contribution from trustees, which totals 3.1 million. So since then, the architects and the team have gone back to the drawing board to determine, you know, what it is that they could shave off the latest estimate that I just shared. And they came up with a variety of things, cost reductions, and scope that could be removed from the project, that totaled about a reduction of $1.1 million, call it, from the increase in the estimate of 1.9 million, which left another 900,000 just to get to the number that we had shared with all of you as the total project cost of 4.8 million. So, we debated whether or not to wait to share with you this kind of information, because I was schooled to not bring a problem forward, but to bring a solution. But we figured all of you are entitled to know, your stakeholders, every one of you that has made a contribution to this project are stakeholders, and we wanted to be fully transparent about where we were. Hence, we decided to proceed today to share more with you in this forum. So I'd like to, with that introduction, turn it over to Robert and Dylan or Robert and Brandon, sorry, to share a little bit more about how it is we arrived at this point and what it is that the team is doing to right the ship and get us back on a track where we can proceed with a project that accomplishes our most urgent objectives. Thank you, Robert and Brandon, for being on hand.
Yeah, thank you for the introduction, and thank you all for being here today, and Pastor Steve for having us and introducing us. I'm Robert Ferguson. I'm the architect from Progressive AE, working with our multidisciplinary team of architects and engineers, structural, electrical, mechanical, civil engineers, all of the disciplines of professionals that are involved in making a project like this happen. And we're partnered with Pioneer, your trusted construction provider, on working through feasibility, constructability, and cost. And so the Progressive and Pioneer team continues, as we have been from the beginning of this, to understand the scope, design what you've seen to date, with the idea that we're meeting the goals of building connections, literally from sanctuary to front door, and then for your community that you're serving and we were a part of through your facility. As you know, the building is sort of a series of additions over time that are structures adjacent to each other. And when we move through those structures and they're not aligned, the complexity goes up. And so what we've seen is an escalation in our understanding of what that complexity is, as we've spent more time looking at original construction drawings, developing very detailed drawings for Pioneer to not only look at internally, but connect with subcontractors who would be doing the work and having conversations about, if this is the ultimate goal, here's what the engineers and architects have put together, what do you think it's going to cost? So the level of information that Pioneer has provided has been exceptional to us. And the fact that they're already reaching out to subcontractors who, some of them have helped you with your tower reconstruction. Some of them are the same contractors that our companies worked with for GRCC up on a historic facility just up the hill a couple of years ago under Heritage Hill campus. All of that has put us in an uncomfortable position to deliver that based on the complexity, based on the ultimate goals of the project, and the construction market, which is one, costly, and two, contractors are very, very busy now. So the climate to attract contractors isn't necessarily as competitive as we might expect in years past. The contractors are very busy. They have a tendency to pick and choose what they want to take on. And complex projects have a tendency to only attract the best contractors. That's who we're dealing with here, but it does change sort of the competitive nature of things. What we've Kurt shared with you that we came back about a month or so ago, well, no, I guess it's about 2 weeks ago, with closing that $1.9 million gap down to 800,000. knowing that, and it was very clear from Kurt and the team that we needed to find another $800,000 in that. So our team has been doing that work since then. We had a session last week with our structural engineers and Brandon and our architects. We have another session coming up next week, because based on those conversations, we think we're finding some feasibility in reducing some of the complexity of the project, reducing some of the risk to contractors, the amount of time it takes to do the construction. Construction time costs money, so if we can shorten construction time, we can reduce the amount of dollars that go into managing the project. And we're feeling confident, I would say beyond optimistic, but we're feeling confident that we'll deliver on the core outcomes of the project for you. A space to gather as a community in a community hall. The ability to easily move, whether you're able-bodied like myself, or you have different mobility through the facility in the same equitable way. Everyone will be on the same path. And connecting to a new front door through the community hall, back into the sanctuary and other ancillary spaces that help support that kind of gathering that you want in the community hall. We think that, and that we have to complete our documentation and share it back with Pioneer for another round of sort of estimating, but we're confident that we're going to close that $800,000 gap. We'll have to provide an update of what that looks like, because as you can imagine, if we're reducing the amount of work we're doing, what it will look like at the end will be a little bit different. Kurt spoke to it earlier that in this effort, we start to first not attack, but see what we can remove that maybe is something that is an opportunity in the project and something that we would want to be able to deliver, but maybe not something that is necessary. If you've ever gone through something like a house remodel or building a house or been a part of a construction project, there's always the, boy, it would be great if we could have, but at a minimum, we need these things. Right. So we're focused right now on delivering the functionality of it, maintaining the quality of the environment that you've upkept and are responsible and are stewards for and have been here in the church facility. So the quality of what the spaces look like, we're looking to maintain. And then ultimately delivering on space to gather, equitable access into the facility, and improved accessibility through a new elevator that connects all levels of the building. Those are the core elements of success, and how we do that is evolving through the project. But through the work that we've been doing the last couple of weeks, we are seeing some sunshine through the clouds. And we're going to deliver a project that we promised you to deliver, and that you have committed your gifts to. And we respect and understand that, and we'll uphold that commitment back to you. Brandon, anything you want to add before we ask for questions?
Absolutely. Again, Brandon Rhodes, Pioneer Construction. I've been working alongside, you hear them, I've been working alongside Robert and his team for 2 years now on this job. And other jobs here at the church, like Kurt said, we've worked on other successful jobs with you guys with the chancel upgrades and everything like that. And I think the only thing I can say right now, and if what Robert said in our presence being here right now, it's when I heard the size and when we heard the overage, the deficit that we're dealing with, I just want you to know that we express the same feelings with that. We do have a sense of attachment emotionally to this job as well. We want this to be a successful job for you as much as you guys do. That's why we're here today. That's why we're putting the work in, every week, several hours a day, we have work sessions to try to get this back on track for you guys. We do not like delivering this type of news to anybody, but it is part of the process. Unfortunately, from time to time, we get these hurdles and roadblocks in the way, and it's up to a trusted team to get through it with you guys as a true partner, and that's what we're here to do. So I think if you can take anything away from that from today, I hope it's that. So
I can walk the microphone around to anybody that wants to ask us questions. So simply raise your hand and I'll walk over to you. Yes, sir.
I must have missed something. Reverend McCoy talked about $2.6 million. Now, as I understand it, you're trying to drag down $1.8 million down to $4 million. What's the number? What is today, what is the estimate of what the cost of the project is going to be?
So the question is, with all of these numbers sort of flying around, what is the goal? Right? What is the cost of the project? We're tasked with delivering you a budget that includes a scope that meets your project needs and can be delivered with construction costs and then project costs such as fees, furniture, things that you don't hire the contractor for $4 million. So the estimate right now is $800,000 above that. And that was after we worked to drop it 1.1 million from a 1.9 overage. Is that clear?
Better.
Better? Okay.
Can I weigh in?
Yes, please.
The estimate originally back in October of 21 from Pioneer was 3.8 million. We added $1 million to that for a total project capital cost of 4.8 million. So there's always been a gap between what was our capital campaign goal of 2.6 million and the total project cost back in October of 21 of 4.8 million. So, as you know, despite all the wonderful and generous gifts from 164 giving units, we raised 2.1 million, not 2.6. So we were $500,000 short from what was the capital campaign goal, which was, what's the difference? 4.8 minus 2.6. That's another
2.2.
2.2 million. The contribution from trustees, adding another million, you're at 3.1 versus 4.6. So there's always that gap that needed to be filled to commence the project, and the assumption to going in was that we were going to need to borrow the difference between that 3.1 and the 4.8. So there's a challenge there already to begin with, but what these latest estimates did was to go beyond the 4.8 million by another 1.9 million. So coming up with things already to reduce the scope and to take out finishes has reduced that gap to by $1 million to a remaining problem beyond the 4.8 million, which they're working on. So guys, you know, I challenged the team, Progressive and Pioneer, to find a way to get back to what was our original goal of a $4 million project. It was a long time ago that we were told that the estimate would increase to 4.8, and we swallowed hard and said, okay, we're going to try and do that. So if we find another 800,000 or 900,000 through the work of the team to get us back to 4.8 million, that's my hope and expectation. So to get back to 4 million, which was our original goal once upon a time, would require, you know, another 800,000 or a total of 1.6 million. I think that unlikely. If we can get back to the number that you all have in your heads for a total project cost, including soft costs of 4.8 million, that'll be a good thing. I'd be surprised and delighted if the team could find another 1.6 million to cut out of the project beyond the million they've already identified, but I think that's really unlikely. So I'll celebrate personally if we can get the total estimated project cost down another 800, 900,000 to get to 4.8 million total project costs using my accounting. So that still leaves a gap from the 3.1 million to the 4.8 that we need to fill in other ways, but it's not different than what we were anticipating having to do to start this project.
What's the definition of soft cost?
So the question is, what's the definition of soft cost? Those are owner held costs that are outside of the contract with the construction manager. So contracts such as the fees for architecture and engineering, fees for things like building permits and inspections, kitchen equipment is budgeted in the project because we're going to be affecting the kitchen enough to have to bring it up to current code requirements. It's licensed now, but when you affect enough things, they want you to bring it all the way up to the current code. So that's what we're doing. It's a safe kitchen. It's just going to be a new safe kitchen. And then furniture like tables and chairs. Those are the things that are considered soft costs.
So it's not the building structure, it's
Not the building structure.
and everything it takes to make the building possible.
That's right. And all the trade contractors that are coming in doing the work, that's managed, that's hard for construction costs. Soft costs are people like. Good question. Yes, I'll repeat the question. Oh, you're not, okay, great.
No, we can still use the mic, so it'll help the folks online and the recording. Thank you.
Keep it on me tongue tied. I have two questions. One is, if you've got half the money and some of us has pledged what we're able to give, where does the other half come from? If so many of us have pledged. You hear my question?
Yep, I won't be able to answer that.
I know. And none of us do, but that is a concern for me. And it particularly concerns me because I don't want missions to be affected by this. So we back off on that.
Well, the intent is not to back off on anything. I think that is, should be made perfectly clear. The goal was always after our feasibility study, to hit that 2.6 that was projected. We're just a little shy of that right now. The trustees were filling in, part of that gap, have committed to fill in part of that gap, with $1 million, as well. Following that, we have a group that is actually still active and working from the capital campaign committee called the follow-up team. And the work of the follow-up team is to find ways to help us fill that gap. One of those is through securing grants and finding the grant writing process. I know Chris Fossey has been, I think she's here somewhere today. Sorry, right over here. Yes, has been working on that for accessibility grants, historic preservation grants. Those things take a little bit more time in terms of writing the grants out and also when they are distributed. So over the course of the 3 years, part of filling in the gap was be securing those grants as well. We always knew we were going to have to borrow. The question was going to be how much and then how soon would we pay off what we had to borrow back. And that also includes the fact that we have pledged right now 2.1 million. We do not have 2.1 million right now. It's still in your pockets for the most part. Some of you have started to give towards that and will continue to give towards that over the 3-year period. So that was always part of the plan as well, to make sure that we fill those gaps in addition to new folks who are coming in and would contribute to that, as well as part of what we call windfall contributions as well. If we receive significant gifts over the next 3 to 5 years, we can apply those toward the project that has already happened once. And we just hope that I shouldn't say, the hope is that those will continue to happen as they do in the future there. So it is an uphill climb, but there is a rough plan in place. It was our hope that by September, we would be able to bring a preliminary spending plan that included all of that coming down. As you have just heard, and as we have been hearing throughout the summer, those numbers keep going up and up. And so we've got to find a way to get those numbers back into a range where we are confident that we can put a spending plan together that is solid, that we know what our numbers are, and that we know what it's going to take to achieve. So right now, we're just not there at that point. Yeah.
Well, in a perfect world, when would you guys be able to put a plan in place and then actually begin the construction process and all that? I think beyond the spending plan.
A perfect world?
In a perfect world, next week. As Kurt, I'm sure can attest to, his project's been in the works for a long time now, for several years, 6 or 7 years now, in different iterations. So in a perfect world, yeah, we'd love to be able to have our plan in place, have all the costs fixed and ready to go, and be able to start. That's not the case right now. So as far as some timelines, maybe one of you gentlemen could give us a rough estimate, maybe.
Yeah, certainly, thank you. So Progressive Architects and Engineers, we still have more work to do before the documentation and design intent is clear enough so that the subcontractor can put it into contract form with Pioneer Construction. What we've been experiencing is the normal pace of documentation and estimate update. So it is a normal cycle, it's just a little bit prickly. And a little bit unique in the fact that coming out of the pandemic, there was an incredible demand in ways that we haven't seen. So,
And the project is quite complex, as we've talked about before. It's not one where you can, it's not one where you can just rush into it. There's some elements to it, for people that have been doing construction for a long time that are just quite challenging. It's a very old building, the original plan was to affect the structure quite a bit. We're adding an elevator shaft through an existing building. These are always challenging things that, you need to take the right amount of time to get the engineers engaged and then get our reaction to what the engineers are saying, look at it from a couple different angles. So it's a process that is worthwhile. As I was saying to the team in our meeting last week, sometimes it's frustrating when projects do protract over time because the cost just naturally goes up through inflation escalation. However, given the time to plan it out and see these details surface before we rush into moving you guys out of the space, it is kind of a blessing because we're able to take this time now, as difficult as it is to have these conversations, we are able to change course and actually come up with a more successful plan.
Realistically, this is construction next year at earliest.
It always was in my mind.
sure, so
2024.
based on where we're at in our documentation, the phase of called design development, with the reduced scope from that documentation, we're going to do a little bit of a circle back to modify our design intent, but then move forward with what's called construction documents. Schedule being ideal, Progressive would be done with our work before mid-December of this year. And that means that documents are in place that if the estimate looks good, church is in a good place, they've got a package that can go out to bidders, and then bidding and negotiation can begin at that point. So right now, assuming that we're able to succeed in the work that we've been doing the last 2 weeks, 3 weeks, we're seeing the ability to deliver what you need to go from estimate and budget to bids. Will be done mid-December. So we're close. our side. The bulk of our work is done to date. Other questions?
Just curious from the standpoint, when we talk about documentation and bidding, them getting bids back from the contractors relative to the timeline, like when we actually talk about sort of construction. Is there any? Else you know that this is coming from what that timeline might be?
I can see that.
Yeah, so the question is, once documents are sent up for bid and bids are received, what's the process between that and getting work?
And I can just go off of what we like to see. In reality, this, once it gets to that point, it's no different than any other project. We'd like to see about a month of bidding cycle, give the contractors a chance to look at the space again, touch it, feel it, and then they turn around, price around, and then we have a deliberation period, if you will. We negotiate or not negotiate, but discuss scope, make sure they fully understand the project before we finalize their contracts. And that's a normal process for us. So we like to see around a month between the time we get those plans in place before we actually finalize something. Typically within that month after we get the plans in, or the initial bids in place, we'll communicate with Kurt and his team, initial pricing, just to say, hey, we're still on track, it's looking good, we just gotta dot some i's and cross some t's. That typically takes a total of a month bid cycle, especially for a job like this. It's difficult, it's complex, but it's not enormous. It's definitely something that we can accomplish that in one. We would like to start construction if all that goes well. We wouldn't want to wait too much longer to start construction because there is an expiration date on bids. We can typically negotiate those out, but we understand too that there still is another portion of this, which is you guys' fundraising efforts, which isn't uncommon for any church project that we've done in the past. So, but in my mind, as we've been planning this out, I've always kind of thought this was a spring of 24 start date. But there's no real hard and fast timeline for us on that standpoint. Once we get a plan in place, we'd like to stick to it all. Other questions?
My question really is it possible for the sanctuary to be usable during construction? My thoughts are no, because there wouldn't be any kind of access for those who are otherwise able to. If you can't do steps, you can't get in the sanctuary, because all of that is going to be torn out and rebuilt. Am I wrong in that, or is there something that I don't know about?
About a ramp.
Yeah, that is part of working on a facility while it's in operation. Ideally, we keep it in operation. It's not uncommon for there to be temporary construction that happens to, one, safeguard the building and the occupants, and then two, solve a problem of functionality from space to space. Commonly I'll just relay what we went through at my church. So I'm at Trinity Lutheran Church up on Fulton. We went through a capital campaign. We had our documentation in place. My wife was the director of facilities. I wasn't the architect because I wanted to go to church on Sundays. But we were in a similar position where our goals weren't quite met. There was some work that had to be done around grants and funding and how do things come in. Then there was some complexity, and we had to, the design team had to rescope things in that way. But I do recall that along the entirety of the project, there were moments when part of the facility was occupiable and usable, and sometimes that it wasn't. But it wasn't always the case that everything within the boundary and around it was never throughout the entire project accessible. So that is that next layer of what what's great about having a construction manager on hand instead of just having us start do our work and throw it out to general contractors to bid on is working through and understanding that. And Pioneer will take over the facility, work with Chris Hernandez and the rest of the staff to maintain life safety, to keep things as operable as possible, and then communicate effectively and in time when you as a congregation in your community can expect parts of the facility to operate in a different way or not operate for a little while because of the work that's being done. So that's a lived experience for me. Every day I heard about it. And it was good to get that perspective.
The one area that will be pretty much offline for the duration of the project will be the kitchen. Because of just how much work is going to be directly over top of it. The sanctuary wasn't, I figured there's probably a way that we can keep that up and running, most of the time.
So, do you want to?
Yeah, well, you guys, I think, just summed it up pretty well. It's our plan to keep the sanctuary operational for every Sunday. We know that it could affect weddings, funerals, and the like as well. And we'll just stay tuned on a case-to-case basis, but we have already talked about other options too, given not only temporary construction that will help us keep it accessible, but other things that we can do inside to help us keep it accessible too. Yeah.
Go ahead.
I don't have a question. I just wanted to express my gratitude to everyone who has stuck with this project all those years. I've been on the building committee since it started and gained such an understanding of how complicated it is to make a building that is this old and in so many different levels that don't make sense. How to make that a space where people can move through safely, comfortably, and with dignity. So I just want to say thanks to everyone who stuck with it.
Well, thank you.
Our pleasure.
And thank you. Okay.
It's a comment as much as a question, so the kitchen obviously is a major portion of the upgrade, or seems to be, from my understanding. So it makes sense to provision for a temporary kitchen in the building next door or some other place because of the duration of the project. So that should be accommodated or certainly seriously considered.
Yeah, for our need, I mean, there are certain things we're just not gonna be able to do. Obviously, we're not gonna be able to host a funeral luncheon or anything like that, at least not in this building here. But yes, we have kitchen facilities across the street and other parts there that we can make accommodations for other activities that we're doing here. And I probably shouldn't even say there, we can't do that, you know, but there's a way. We can find it if we really need to. All right, well, we're at the noon hour here. So I do want to see if there are any last questions that we have before we end our time here together today. Kurt, anything else that you would like to add before I give us a few things and wrap up?
No, I think, it's been a difficult session to convey. I've had all of this on my heart for a long time. It's a few sleepless nights and the like, but this was an important disclosure of transparency to all of you. Now you know the thoughts that I've had and the concerns that I have, but I still have faith in this project and our ability to get there. It's just a process along the way that's been difficult, but we have the right team. We have great contributions from so many of you, and it'll still happen. We will get there. Thank you all.
Thank you. Thanks, Kurt, for all of your hard work. Robert, Brandon, any other final things that you need to share?
I look forward to the next time we get to do this, and it's more joyful this year. Yes, we will.
Yeah.
Same, I echo that. I'm all set though.
Great, good. Well, I want to thank you both for being here as well, and for taking the time to explain all of this out. We really appreciate your time here. Some questions have been asked that I just, I want to take a moment to address here before we close, is that, around all of the increased costs, the gap that we knew that we had to begin with. And the question is, what are we gonna do? Well, we've already answered a little bit of that, around, additional sources of funding that we are looking for and we're going to continue to look for. But one of the things that I think is important for all of us to hear is that there is no one solution that is going to magically present itself. I think somebody said something about that earlier today. But there are solutions that are within our power. We are the solution. We have decisions to make based upon the information that we have right now. We can commit to do this project and try to keep the costs within reason as we're doing right now. But we can also commit of ourselves and others, and it's not necessarily even through our own additional financial commitments, but how are we selling and supporting the project to others to make this a more accessible and hospitable place. There are several options. I actually listed 5 different options that I thought of in terms of what we could do. They're not all exclusive. There are probably more than that. As we commit with the funds that we have, we stay within the constraints of those funds that we raised, but those won't accomplish the primary goal of the projects. We can commit through additional loans over the next several years, which is not uncommon for some churches. Or we could commit to extending the time frame of our capital campaign for a few years longer. And look at raising additional funds ourselves. All this involves a combination of things. We can, and I don't think this is an option, but we can even go as far as canceling the project. But we've all invested enough time and energy and have a commitment that I don't think that that's anything we want to consider here. The option to get us to a point where we can get past those wants, if you will, that our gentlemen were expressing earlier, and help us to focus on what we really need, I think is the ultimate goal that we want to do here. But we are the solution. And so what we need to do is to continue to pray, to focus on our goals, and to follow along and lead where we can, especially with those of you who are here in this forum, those of you who are online, those of you who will be watching this later afterwards. We all can lead and help to make this project a success, and I'm confident that we can do that. I want to thank everybody for coming today. We know that there will probably be additional questions that you'll think of as you go along. I know Kurt, myself, any members of the building committee will do our best to receive those and answer those the best way that we can. And if not, if we don't know the answer, that's what we have Robert and Brandon for. And we go back to them and say, hey, can you answer this for us here? And they're very timely in their responses as well. So let's close our time in prayer, and then we'll let you get about the rest of your Sunday. Lord, we thank you for the sunshine. We thank you for those who have gone before us to give us this place that we are in now, to be able to have these discussions and the vision about our future. And we ask that as we have received this news today, that we take it not as a disappointment, but help us to see the blessing and the challenge that is provided. Help us to move forward in faith, to do all that we can in the ways that we can, to share in that mission of being welcoming, to love all that come in, and to continue to make disciples of all of God's children in Jesus Christ. We pray this in his name. Amen. Amen. Thank you all once again. And there's still a little bit of lemonade over here too, if you want one for the road.